The Chernobyl zone is a vast territory, be it in real life or in the S.T.A.L.K.E.R games. In the latter, we are able to visit many different locations within the zone, which offer a variety of environments and hours of exploration for the players. But how big are these maps exactly? Hello Stalkers, and welcome to the Anomalous Dugout. If you have ever wondered about the size of areas in the trilogy, you've come to the right place. In this video, I will explain how I calculated the surface area of each location and share the results. Before we start, I must inform you that this video is inspired by the work of Bitoshek, a Russian YouTuber who did create a similar video in the past. I regularly referred to his video in conversations about the size of the maps. However, some time ago all of his S.T.A.L.K.E.R related videos were taken down, so it is not possible to watch it anymore. That is why I decided to find out the size of the locations by myself. In order to do so, I used a free program called ImageJ. The principle is simple. In-game, use the distance indicator option of the crosshair to measure a specific recognizable landmark in each location. For example, in Jupiter I measured this building to be around 142.5 meters long. Then, import an image of the map in ImageJ and set up a scale using that measurement. All you have to do is trace a line the length of what you measured and tell the program that this line is, in this case, 142.5 units long. Finally, draw a closed line around the edges of the map and the software will automatically calculate the surface area contained within. Now, I have to admit that this method is not without its flaws. For every location I tried to measure the playable area. That is, only the places where the player can go without breaking out of bounds. However, I had to oversimplify at times. For example, in Pripyat I did not remove all the buildings that are not accessible, and still counted them into the calculated surface. Similarly, underground parts contained within outdoor locations were not really taken into account. As for fully underground areas, I decided not to include them in this video at all, for two main reasons. Firstly, these are mostly composed of smaller rooms and tunnels, which means their overall size is extremely small compared to the outdoor maps. Secondly, since the underground bits are more often than not located underneath outdoor areas, it does not make sense to count them if we want to know how large the game maps are in terms of overall surface area. Lastly, we need to remember that this method uses in-game measurements as well as map plotting in the software, both of which are subject to imprecisions. Therefore, somebody else doing the same calculations will probably end up with slightly different results. You are free to try. Alright, enough with the explanations. Let's take a look at all outdoor areas, ranked from smallest to largest. Without surprise, the hospital is the smallest. It could even be argued it is mostly an underground area. Next up is the bar, or the eastern side of Rostock if you prefer. Naturally, it is followed by the wild territory. Even if these two locations were combined, it would still be quite small, due to the large amount of out-of-bounds land. Then we have Limansk. Obviously it would be much bigger if the entire city was accessible. Yantar from Shadow of Chernobyl is also surprisingly small, but they increased its size in Clear Sky. Slightly larger is the Red Forest from Clear Sky. Then there are two locations very close in size, Pripyat from Shadow of Chernobyl and the Red Forest, also from Shadow of Chernobyl. In Clear Sky, only a portion of the power plant was available. Next, four locations very close to one another. Agroprom from Shadow of Chernobyl, Dark Valley from Shadow of Chernobyl, Garbage from Shadow of Chernobyl, and Dark Valley from Clear Sky. Moving on, we have the army warehouses, firstly from Clear Sky, then from Shadow of Chernobyl. Dark Valley and army warehouses are the only areas that Clear Sky reused from Shadow of Chernobyl without making them larger. Speaking of which, next up is the enlarged Agroprom from Clear Sky. Same thing with the garbage. Then we have the southern part of the CNPP from Shadow of Chernobyl, my favorite location. Following up, Pripyat from Call of Pripyat. Interesting fact, this map won the best location tournament that I made some time ago through YouTube polls. Another beloved area, the Cordon from Shadow of Chernobyl. Of course, slightly enlarged in Clear Sky. Next is the northern part of the CNPP, the largest location from Shadow of Chernobyl. Okay, time for the top 3. The Great Swamps is the biggest map from Clear Sky. In second position, the area around Jupiter. And finally, Zaton, the most giant map in the entire trilogy. Now, what about comparing the 3 games? The results are actually very close. Despite its 3 huge maps, Call of Pripyat has the smallest game area. It is closely followed by Shadow of Chernobyl, and even closer by Clear Sky. Now let's combine all the maps from the trilogy. Then we get a total playable area of around 7 square kilometers. However, this is not realistic, since some locations are repeated in Clear Sky from Shadow of Chernobyl. So I also calculated the total while only counting these locations once, in their largest iteration. In these conditions, the total playable area becomes approximately 5.7 square kilometers. What does this mean? What did we learn? First of all, it means the locations we see in-game are far from being all of what's in the zone. The actual size of the anomalous zone is another debate all in itself, but clearly it is much larger than that. Furthermore, we've seen that most areas have a lot of land out of bounds, including buildings which could be interesting to explore. There is a lot of potential to enlarge these locations by making more of this terrain accessible. In fact, how big would the maps be if you could visit them entirely? I also thought about this question and decided to answer it in a simple way, by considering all the locations as rectangles, with the same height and width as the previous calculations. I won't go into the details of every map again, but here are the results on screen. Basically, by doing this, the size of maps is on average increased by around 50%, and some areas would even be several times bigger. I would love to explore all of these parts that were closed off in the trilogy, like the entirety of Rostok, Limansk, Pripyat, the CNPP, etc. Which brings me to the upcoming S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, that will be huge. Indeed, the game was advertised as having a map of around 64 square kilometers, meaning it would be more than 10 times the size of what we currently have in the trilogy. Of course, it is very much possible that the actual playable area on release will be less than what announced, but it will still be gigantic compared to what we know of the zone. In short, there is plenty of room to include all the former locations, expand them, and add a lot of brand new areas on top of it. And you can bet all these locations will be filled with new characters, quests, interesting places to explore, and secrets to find. Anyway, that's all for now. Did you expect such results about the size of the maps? Tell me in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and good hunting, S.T.A.L.K.E.R.